Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. How's it going? We are exploring. Well, we started by exploring this. Is it all relative? A theme, a belief, a catchphrase that's very emblematic of our current society, current age. What we discovered was, to say it's all relative, thumbs up, is to claim that belief has a standing greater than it actually has. All one can say about belief is, well, this seems true to me. But to claim it has any authority, any expertise, any knowledge, any understanding, or any ability to do any sort of goodness at all is to claim that any of those things is all relative to personal beliefs. And what we've discovered is that causes human problems. Cause of human problems is rulership via belief. We could go a step further and say that could only happen if you haven't understood the difference between understanding and belief. They are two different, opposing cognitive functions. We could go one step further and say, well, maybe you have understood that there's a difference between belief and understanding. Maybe you have understood that anyone claiming to be a doctor because of his own personal beliefs can only do harm. They can't do any medical goodness. Anyone claiming to be a mechanic out of his own personal beliefs can only destroy engines. They can't actually do good. And maybe you've even gone one step further and realized, anyone within conservatism, capitalism, or religion claiming expertise by not understanding but personal beliefs can only sweep death and destruction across humanity and any planet where there is a ruler over human souls based on belief. Maybe you have come to that conclusion yourself, having engaged in understanding, but maybe you're afraid of yourself going through the process of learning understanding, learning the activity of understanding, and applying it to purify your own false beliefs that are ruling your soul and perfecting that skill of understanding that we could call our purpose, the meaning of life, or human excellence. That fear of making that transition yourself, we saw in the book, is called cognophobia. So, we might say, well, if this is the natural crisis humanity is in, we have to develop certain characteristics, certain character traits that we have to practice as we do it anyway. Whether we like it or not, we carry false beliefs from childhood that are the cause of our own problems, our own injustice against ourselves, and our injustice against anyone else we might have some power over. Be they employees, be they followers of the religion you're the preacher for, or a pastor for, or whatever, or an imam or rabbi for, be they your own children, or be they the partner in your relationship. So, whether we like it or not, it's not a matter of blame or shame, it's a matter of understanding this is the human condition, this is our job. So therefore, what we've also recognized is the functioning of belief that makes it such a problem is, well, not only does it cosplay or pretend to be knowing and expertise and anything that qualifies rulership, it also functions in opposition to understanding and the parts of understanding. If you've ever seen a debate with a right-winger, conservative, capitalist, or religious person, they always do the same thing. They will start pretending to be civil or good faith, and then they will try and start a fight. Because fighting, conflict, is the abandonment of the intelligible. That's why war is unjust, always. Well, I guess technically you can say, well, using violence to stop these belief-based groups from playing out their tyranny only so far as to be able to create the conditions for self-reflection so that they can change potentially, or and humanity can reflect on the conditions that give rise to this. Well, there's a little window for that there, but in essence, conflict is the abandonment of the intelligible, or fighting, and that's why to sabotage reason, people will pick fights to defend their ignorance. Evidence, another aspect of understanding. People will, they call it moving the goalposts, so that the evidence that would prove my belief wrong, actually, let's change it. And the cliche example of this is the rapture. The rapture was supposed to happen, or Armageddon was supposed to happen in Jesus's lifetime. Didn't happen, so they made up the stuff about Jesus rising from the dead, and they 30 to 50 years after the fact, in order to save the faith. And every generation has been filled with people, has had many people claiming the rapture is going to come this year. Oh no, maybe next year. Oh no, maybe next year. So that's a good example of goalposting the evidence. You may have seen debates where they don't have a shared text. Like we have a shared text here. We are learning all this from a text that we can look at. And if there's a disagreement, we can look in the text. Just have a look. Open the book. Same thing with anything. If you're learning, I don't know, to become a doctor at university, you can have a disagreement about something, but instead of saying, well, it's my belief that humans have 3 arms, the Bible says so. Well, you open the medical textbook to the page about how many arms a human body has, ideally, and you can clarify. There are these debates held on mainstream media, the likes of, billionaire-run conservative fascist propaganda networks. Capitalism, they're all fascist because they run by those belief-based groups to propagandize for them. And someone will say, well, I have heard of these facts that say these things. Well, I have heard of these different facts. And they can just make up facts. Sometimes there's on YouTube videos, there's a little subheading that comes up. Actually, this didn't happen. Or sometimes on tweets and things, there'll be a community note. Actually, those facts are wrong. But the conversation has ended. That person has used those fake facts to build their argument to prove whatever personal belief they are trying to justify. Because that's debate. Debate isn't understanding. Debate is defending belief. Dialectic is the activity of understanding. So there has to be a shared text from which you can gain the facts. Here are the facts of this issue. Let's have our conversation with reference to it. Now, there's a different kind of reflection that isn't about what did or did not happen, but what is good to happen. What is good for us. What is necessary for human soul and human development. What is truth itself? What is good or goodness itself? What is the one or oneness itself? And what is necessary for our universe to exist, from which we can derive understanding about ourselves, the nature of divinity, and our purpose here as human beings. This isn't based on evidence and facts that would be needed for a debate or conversation about physical things. This is metaphysics. I heard someone yesterday, one of the few content creators I tune into every now and again, and he was complaining that there are some people who take philosophy at university and they think that that qualifies them to talk about physical things about which they have no expertise. They don't need the evidence from the physical world because they can, what he called, argue from first principles. Now, there are many layers to that. First of all, this is a physical thing that he is usually talking about. This particular streamer is a political streamer. Second, his only experience of philosophy is academic philosophy, which is people, academic philosophy, Socrates called, and is true today, philodoxia, the love of opinions. So we call that rhetoric. How to sound intelligent while using language to justify the beliefs you already carry. That is modern academic philosophy. So a lot of people think, well, if I've read a whole lot of books, I can say, well, my beliefs are right because this section of Kant says this, and this section of Hegel says this, and this section of Spinoza says this, and my interpretation of Plato says this somewhere in this text, somewhat in this way of reading Plato. Now, the irony is, as we read in this book here, we never quote these people. The only time we ever quote these strange names of these strange people with their own false beliefs, ignorance, and stage of development is when we are engaged in defending the ignorance and beliefs that we haven't ourselves reflected on. As Harry has done in this book, in this dialogue. So back to our political streamer friend. Right, academic philosophy is garbage. Or, to quote him, argue from first principles, it is built upon defense of belief. Belief being one of those two cognitive functions we engage in through time that opposes understanding. So of course it's bad. We can even trace it back to its lineage, or its first principles is an expression that maybe is loaded. How about causes? We can trace it back to its root cause. Emperor Justinian, the guy who murdered the real philosophers in the academy, shut down the academy, burnt the libraries to institute Christianity. Belief, professors in university profess the faith, where the root of that word comes from. And, of course, Aristotle, someone who was kicked out of the academy because he was only focused on physical things. He didn't realize that education was transformative, not informative. The physical world serves a purpose to highlight certain key adjectives, beauty, justice, the things that we are interested in, things that are meaningful. We are interested in beautiful things, are we not? We want justice, do we not? Such that we recognize that these things are not in the physical world, but are used as adjectives about the physical world, while the physical world itself aspires to its ideal form, or form is the wrong word, its ideal model in its development or perfection. That's evolution. In other words, the physical world serves a purpose to point our attention to its cause, mind, where we experience directly and can understand beauty, justice, beauty itself, not a beautiful streamer or painting, but beautiful itself, beauty itself, not a just referee or a just society, but justice itself, the model. What we've been learning is, by exploring analogy, one of the activities of understanding, we have discovered that analogy is itself one of the primary causes or principles of creation. Necessarily, analogy has to have existed before creation for creation to follow that model in creation, in creating this evolving universe. Equally so, it has to be maintained for the universe to continue its existence. Also, this is important for us, those that are in stages of evolving or perfection also follow analogy. In that, we are becoming like our model in our stage of perfection. So we can get the list of terms within the set or class that has its ideal or model, or we've added a few words. The ideal, the principle, the model, or the archetype, that we go through stages of development towards that. So all of this is answering the most important questions about the nature of reality, about things that are themselves non-physical, what is good, what is beautiful, what is just, the most meaningful things that we are aspiring to, not by looking at specifics in the physical world, but reasoning from reasoning itself. What is inherent in thought itself? What must necessarily exist for there to be creation or evolution, or adjectives that have scope over everything in the physical world? This would be, well, this is called formally metaphysics. What are the principles that exist and can be verified directly in the experience of mind knowing itself, the peak experience, sometimes called enlightenment because it's experienced as the pure light, but also it's a kind of awakening experience, because it is as though your physical life or lives have been there's another analogy, like a dream compared to this experience of eternity or reality. That's metaphysics. Now, you can infer the existence of metaphysics by looking at physical things. So we've been using analogy to realize, hang on a second. Any doctor who operates out of belief can only do harm, and therefore will only seek to benefit themselves financially in some way, malpractice, because they can't benefit the health of the subject. That's also true for any mechanic who doesn't actually understand engines. That's also true for every single politician who operates out of personal belief and not understanding. Every single religion. Capitalism. The personal beliefs of those who inherit their billions of dollars. We've understood that this is the natural law of reality, that they are breaking. Those that have a rulership position have to use their understanding to benefit the subjects, not themselves. Otherwise, humanity goes extinct. And we have the myth of Prometheus to remind us about that. So, by the way, Socrates in the Phaedo talks about how he realized this as well. That if we pay attention, or if we use our mind to reflect on, there's our reflection, with reasoning, all of the physical things, or what's in the physical world, we see it pointing to the metaphysical world. In other words, you can't answer the questions about what's good by saying, point to it in the physical world. Maybe it's never been in the physical world. So that's the lie that fascists will point to. Socialism, trying to help society, and not capitalism, trying to help only the capital owners. When has that ever worked? Point to it in the physical world. Socrates says this in the Republic. This doesn't exist in the physical world. The ideal. Even if it did, I wouldn't be interested in it. We're not interested in physical world examples. We're interested in the ideal that we are aspiring towards. And as a mind or self can reach directly. The direct apprehension of the model or ideal or principle or archetype. Just as the other aspect of the game, if that's our excellence, you can't reach excellence without also removing the blocks in the way. All that opposes every step of development towards that excellence you have to also address. The name for the cognitive function, again, causal. You never see this, is belief. You never see belief. Any evidence that you find through studies won't describe belief itself, only its functioning or the effects of belief. You have to infer the existence of belief. But belief functions specifically to oppose, by definition, understanding. So once again, we are reasoning from reasoning itself. Things that are inherent to thought, necessary for reality, non-physical, but foundational, causal. So in that way, we are not appealing to belief. We're understanding belief, but we're not thinking through belief. Prejudice. That's most important. There's a famous saying that I see sometimes online. Einstein says you can't solve problems caused by a certain way of thinking using that same way of thinking. There's also a principle, is it Gödel's principle? No system is itself complete and self-contained. Well, maybe other than philosophy. It requires input from a higher system. This is that higher system. Understanding itself, or what we call philodianoia. The love of understanding. So, the difficulty is all of the people in our current society who call themselves philosophers are not doing this. That's why there's the channel here. Even though it doesn't get a lot of followers, and I'm trying my best with my sound drops and all the sorts of things to make it more fun.
Honestly, I feel really inspired.
And it inspires Emma.
And she spit on him also.
No, that's not what's happening.
Oh, to be a man.
Honorable, filled with honor, and he is walking that talk, man.
Thank you, filled with honor.
Off the perky, call me Kirky.
And we're off the perky, so call us Kirky on this channel. What am I talking about? Try and make it fun and interesting and engaging, but yeah, it's not done anywhere else. So, it's difficult to infer from that physical experience of academic philosophers that about philosophy itself. As we've been saying, it's not a good example. It's better to understand philosophy itself first, the difference between philodoxia, love of belief, academic philosophy, and philodianoia, true philosophy. Right? The same difference between debate and dialectic. So we're already putting together an analogy. As academic philosophy is to philodoxia, the love of opinions, is to debate, is to sounding smart, rhetoric, is to having no actual reference or not being able to have a positive effect on the physical world or only doing harm. So too, True philosophy is to philodianoia, what we call this, what we do here, is to dialectic, the opposite of debate, is to actually benefiting necessarily the physical world compared to the harm of academic philosophers, is to whatever else I had in that list. That's the thing about analogy. You can continue to build that setup. From an ideal or principle, you can have a set of terms. Its true name, philodoxia. So the ideal, rulership by belief, or it is all relative. Its true name, philodoxia. Its functioning, debate. Its effect on the physical world, harm. So too, true philosophy. Its real name, philodianoia, love of understanding. Notice the word dianoia specifically means we're not understanding physical things with reference to our physical senses. We are understanding the non-physical dimension of reality that is causal. The nature of our own mind itself. Thus the fancy word dianoia. We need it because there is no English equivalent. I hope that doesn't put you off. Is to its activity, dialectic, and analogy. And you can extend that list, and because they're opposites, as you find one, find a new term in one, you can apply it to the other. So there's my response to that content creator who said, modern philosophers, again, not real philosophers, learn how to argue, debate, not dialectic, by using a kind of logic that makes them sound smart, rhetoric. So the word rhetoric means, and not reasoning or dialectic. They claim to be reasoning from first principles and therefore have expertise over all these different domains they do not have expertise over, compared to real philosophy that reasons from maybe not first principles, but reason itself, reasoning from what's inherent in thought itself, the logos. Reason from absolute principles that necessarily must exist and that will always be true, while not claiming qualifications over other specific fields, but has a kind of rulership over all of them in that they set the standards for what it means to have expertise in any one of them. In other words, a philodianoia philosopher isn't a master mechanic, but he can understand the principles that wouldn't be the criteria that would have to be met in order to be qualified. Now, what we have been asking, as we've been reading this book, is what does philodianoia or true philosophy have meet the conditions for the qualification of rulership over? What are we doing here? We are understanding itself, which allows us to understand the difference between belief and understanding, those two sets we just made. Purifying ourselves from the cause of our own injustice, problems, both in this lifetime at every level and beyond, and perfecting our excellence, allowing us to benefit life. Specifically, individual souls in their development towards the ideal, in the removal of ignorance, the perfection of wisdom, and recognizing through understanding that there must be a cause even to our ideal state of mind. So not only a guru, but a guru of gurus. Now, again, that word has been misused by people who claim to be gurus from belief. So there's the difficulty. All of these words are stolen by philodoxias or Stoics. Stoicism is, by definition, the stealing of metaphysical language and applying it to personal beliefs and the physical world only. And Stoicism is the most popular brand of philosophy content on YouTube currently. So, for those souls, for any human being, this is a necessary activity. For those who seek the perfection of their excellence also need a guide in this activity. Those who are seeking to remove their problems, remove the chains of their current problems and the prison of reincarnation, necessary. Those who seek to fulfill their highest potential and purpose, necessary. For anyone seeking rulership over souls, we talk about the corruption of conservatism, capitalism, and clergy. One would need a knowledge of the ideal of souls and the understanding to rank and diagnose those sameness levels of souls, hierarchically ranked in terms of sameness and difference towards that ideal. So soul, but also recognizing the principle of the stages of evolution leading towards the purpose of evolution, which involves also caring for our physical universe and all life. Maintaining the care for all sameness and difference within an evolving species, because you have to do both. You have to have a standard of sameness. All lives matter. Now, once again, this is another expression that has been bastardized by fascists or believers. In other words, when the Black Lives Matter movement was current, the right-wingers said, no, Black lives don't matter. All lives matter, but we don't mean it in that way. We mean it literally, all lives matter. In that particular instance, it was especially important to, as it currently is, point out to the believers that American Black Lives Matter. Because belief is prejudice, including racist. And the systems that maintain belief-based rulership and authority are inherently violent, racist, sexist, and so on. So, within any species, that sameness and difference has to be nurtured and supported, because it's through differences, evolutionarily speaking, that new changes get introduced that allows the development of life to move closer and closer towards that ideal, while also recognizing that we are the same in that we all matter, we're all important, and that there are fundamental principles that apply to all equally. Universal principles universally applied for universal benefit should be the catchphrase of the progressives, while the catchphrase of the right wing should be, we are the party of the pathologos, seeking to do harm for our personal benefit, which is sadism, to sadistically do harm to personally benefit and conserve the unjust systems that allow for our personal beliefs to flourish at the expense of others, requiring a fake hierarchy which puts my group above all other groups and allows for an injustice done by my group to everyone else. In other words, there's no Republican Party. That's not a political party. It's the Pathologos Party, the rulership of the false beliefs party. Whereas to be ruled by understanding That's true. That would be the true political party. And should be the ideal of those who are seeking to progressives towards that ideal. Philodianoia would be the ideal. The love of understanding, which includes using it to benefit the subjects of that rulership. So, I had to do a quick reply to that to point out understandable frustration against academic philosophers, philodoxias, and their seeking to sound smart rhetoric, to argue, debate, which only does harm and opposes reason and evidence, the functioning of a belief, and to claim rulership or feeling like they're smarter than anyone else or qualification that they do not have, compared to real philosophy that we do on this channel and very few other places, but, you know, all has to start rolling somewhere. Real philosophy, philodianoia, the love of understanding, that actually reasons from causes, preconditions, principles, and what's inherent in reason, language, thought itself, that does good and benefits and is necessary for any goodness and benefit over any art that has life or soul or intelligent as its subjects, such as politics, spirituality, not religion, but essential for every evolving soul. So necessary to master, or to do our best at mastering for every single person. Therefore, the meaning of life, you could use that expression, which isn't trying to debate, but does dialectic to reason together, friendly, collectively, step by step, through questions and answers, through use of analogy to come to mutual understanding, which is itself preparation for insight, where you can confirm there's your direct experience, only it's not physical experience, it's the metaphysical experience of mind itself, or the model, or the ideal, or the principle, that can be then used as the model of beauty, justice, and expertise in every other field, necessary for human survival and our evolution, or all other fields that have their own specific terms that reflect the ultimate logos, but still have to follow these principles. In other words, the qualification for all qualification. So, otherwise, you know, very great streamer, very insightful, but a completely understandable grievance. Only every single term that he was using in making that attack on philosophy was the exact opposite of philosophy, which is why dialectic is so important, because every single term was misinformed. But without somebody asking questions and judging his answers, to say, actually, that's not what philosophy is, that's the opposite, then he could come to a conclusion, therefore philosophy is stupid. Or that you can't, to quote him, argue from first principles. That's a bullshit conclusion, that's false. But completely understandable if each of the premises used were themselves false. Each of the terms were misunderstood. That's why dialectic is more important than speech making or debate. So very understandable, but I wanted to clear that up on the off chance that, I don't know, he may or may not come across it, but there will be many people like that. People frustrated at people calling themselves philosophers. There are many people, one of the difficulties with this channel is people are not interested because philosophy has been so shit since Socrates. It's been the exact opposite. But what we are engaged in now is the good one. And what we are doing is discovering how we answer questions that have been stolen from the fuckheads of society, religious people. What is the nature of God? You know, those people who are using their personal ignorant beliefs about God to justify playing out their own bullshit patterns of injustice, killing people, murdering people, genociding people, subjugating women, subjugating people of other races. You know that religion, religion is what they do all the time, always. Because it has to be that way. This is another thing about religion. There are some philosophers that say, well, maybe religion isn't bad. Maybe every single person who's ever been in a religion is bad. Or maybe there's some good aspects of religion. Just take those parts out. Or maybe there was one or two religions that were good, actually, that weren't doing racism or sexism. This is the significance of reasoning from first principles, or reasoning from reasoning, dianoia. That can't be the case. Religion means, by definition, form, root, cause, means to be bound by a saving belief. That's its literal definition. It will only be bad if you understand what belief is and how it functions towards the greater cognitive function, understanding. So it's no coincidence that it's been filled with racism, sexism, genocide, oppression, etc., because these are the aspects of belief that can be traced all the way back to caveman days. Can't ever be good. The only good things that you are seeing happen in spite of that. When someone says, I'm going to help you, not because the book says so, but because I understand that you are a person and I understand what you need and I understand how to provide that, not one use of belief in that expression. People are falsely equivocating it to religion, which is the very definition of what we're seeing here. Modern thinking seeks not for causes or first principles, once again, but correlation. Oh, here's a religious person doing good. Therefore, because person doing good is happening at the same time as being religious, maybe there's some good in religion. That's correlation, not causation. They are doing that in spite of their religion. It's understanding. I understand you're a person. I understand what you need. I have understanding about that specific area. I understand how to use my understanding of that area to meet your need. Not because I'm going to get a cookie from God if I do so, but because I have some understanding or intuition about what is good. Understanding. Belief says, hey, don't understand, believe me, bro. In other words, every step of that good interaction by that good religious person was in opposition to the beliefs that they grew up with. Which is why the people who are more ruled by belief are more obviously unjust. The word that we call them, fundamentalists. That's not a different class of things. It's still religion. It's just people who are more ruled by their religion. Following the beliefs of Paul, if they're Christian, who was a murderer for fun. This is clear and obvious if you just reason about what is most simple. And that's what we've been doing here. Make it simple. What's the root cause? What is belief? Therefore, we don't have to spend decades and centuries and lifetimes going through all of the millions of different versions of different religious beliefs. And if we look at throughout that can ever exist, currently exist, but not only that, but can ever exist, not just on our species or planet, but in any planet or in any species, we don't have to do that. We just reason simply. Now, I don't want to call it reason from first principles because of, once again, its affiliation with believers, academic philosophy. But it just makes it simple. And we read last time in the book, let's see it. This requires us to explore ideas in a new way. It is said to be simple and difficult. Simple because if you reflect on each of these points in a metaphysical, notice not physical, metaphysical exploration, they should be simple. This should all be simple and obvious. I didn't say common sense, because that's one of those words used by believers to justify their ignorance. Hey, a lot of people think this. It's common sense. My whole family are racists. It's common sense. It's simple because if you reflect on all of the points in a metaphysical exploration, they should be simple. But the simple for the wise may not be simple for the fool. The fool's simplicity might become wise if he would endure this, the study of the simple. But the fool's foolishness is believing that doing that is foolish. That's why it requires us to do this anyway. We're all in the human game. We all have beliefs that oppose this reflection on the simple. We have to do it anyway. In doing it anyway, we build up virtues, temperance, keeping your cool, courage, pursuing it anyway. In spite of the self-defense mechanism of belief to try and sabotage this in any possible way. We develop wisdom in reading these books and referring to this shared text. We seek to live according to this at all times. There's our justice. Now, Socrates points out in the Phaedo that, by the way, until you reach this ideal, that's where you find them really. That's where you find true temperance, wisdom, justice itself. Like coins being traded in for the real thing is the metaphor he gives. So what's the point? Well, all of the key terms that we have to unlearn the false definitions of, and in the study of the simple, develop an understanding of the true definitions for. It requires us to challenge our cognophobia, the cause of the human crisis, the fear of doing this, the fear of abandoning our false beliefs and associated mask and way of being and all of the things that we think gives control to our world. Challenge that cognophobia and do it anyway. Without which you won't be able to come to any understanding. In fact, your understanding may be the opposite, as this otherwise insightful and good person came to a bad decision, a bad conclusion. No, not absolutely true and insightful when talking about what he was actually focused on, but to come to a general a understanding as a general principle, that's false. It requires us to do this anyway. Like, I'm a bit under the weather at the moment, but I didn't really feel like doing the stream, but I am doing it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And you might say, well, don't you get support from all of the people that tune into the live stream? Maybe not, because I don't get it. Well, because this is new. Again, there has to be someone first through the brick wall.
Boom. I love that.
But we do have Emma on the soundboard.
Gargle on my...
And she says dirty things sometimes.
Goon, 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 goon.
Because she's a bit of a gooner.
This guy needs a soundboard.
That's what I'm saying.
And if you're calling me cool, guilty as charged.
And she's guilty as charged.
Off the perky, call me Kirky.
Call her Kirky. All right. So, with all that under our belts, let's fix my lights. This one's nice. And jump back in. So what makes what we're doing different from academic philosophy or even physical scientists who are very good at using their personal beliefs at determining what should be done, what's good to do in making nuclear weapons and hand grenades and pesticides? Because they haven't understood whether it should be done or whether it's good to do. So once again, this should be absolutely taught in every school from year one. Because everything we do is in pursuit of what we think is good. But how do we find out what's good? There's two ways, belief or understanding. What's the difference? Maybe that should be taught in school. By the way, this is what the text said. Joseph said, shouldn't we be learning about beliefs and the activity of surfacing our own unsuspected false beliefs that are the cause of our own injustice? Shouldn't we be learning that at school? Shouldn't we? Should we maybe? Seeing as that's what we are as human beings, believers or understanders, that's our thing. But we do it here because we're cool.
Oh, this guy's a genius. This guy's absolute genius.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a genius.
I think you're a babe.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that.
I'm just thinking about being hot.
Well, Emma trying to steal my thunder. Okay. So instead of saying reasoning from first principles or whatever our friend was complaining about, we can say supreme originating cause of the universe. How do we get there? Let's jump in from here. Let us return to the idea of likeness and discuss it as Proclus, and I did give a review of who Proclus was in our last episode, so you know who this dude is. One of the head teachers of the academy, after Plato, but before Emperor Justinian shut it down for Christianity. In his commentary on Plato's Parmenides, Plato was the first head teacher of the academy, around 300 BC or thereabouts. Was the student of Socrates. Socrates was killed by the state for challenging their ignorant beliefs, including beliefs about the divine, when Plato was in his 20s, so not old enough to have gone through this process of learning about false beliefs and removing them. So we lost philosophical midwifery. There's two things we have to do: perfect understanding and purify the false, purify beliefs. Plato didn't get that because we killed his teacher. But it's back again, thanks to the author of this book. So that's Socrates, his teacher. Socrates' teacher, when he was, I think 19, met Parmenides. So commentary on Plato's Parmenides. That's the conversation Socrates had with his teacher. Parmenides' teacher was Xenophanes. And that's the earliest philosopher that we have any evidence of, or any written evidence of. He said, hey, carry this question. What is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking? What's the whole of it? And what's watching? So that's a kind of question about metaphysics or our true purpose that we can carry to keep our state of mind focused on the right thing. Again, not physical. The whole that perceives. In other words, without distinguishing this physical object or this sound, foreground and background. Ever wondered what the whole of it is? What's the whole scope of your vision? What is that? And what's watching it? So that's the whole lineage, pretty much. I mean, before that we have Homer, which we have the Iliad and Odyssey, if you read the Balboa translation of, but that's the whole lineage. Xenophanes to Parmenides, to Socrates, to Plato. And then in Plato's Academy, we have some key head teachers. Damascius, I think was one of the last ones. Plotinus, and one of the big dogs, Proclus, who wrote a lot of commentaries on the Platonic dialogues. So there's just a little bit of history, so you know where we're at. So, Proclus says this in the commentary of Plato's Parmenides. Well, now to begin, would you not agree that unless things could become like another, there would be no likeness among things? For if things have become, or are, or will become, like other things, the property of likeness must have a prior existence. Or, stated another way, whatever is used existed prior to its use. And we've been talking about that specifically with reference to the difference between physics and metaphysics. We're looking at what is prior, that's used in the physical world, that has to exist prior. And that also includes the natural law of rulership or mastership as well. So when we say rulers have to benefit their subjects, we're not saying because I think it'd be neat. It's because it's a rule of reality that has to exist for any species that wants to remain unextinct. And that principle has to exist prior to its unfolding in this particular species. Metaphysics. Or stated another way, yes, the condition for likeness must exist then, for likeness to exist. The condition for likeness. Further, when anything becomes like the thing, then it seeks, then the condition of likeness makes it possible for it to be like its model. Not just like other things, but for development, the thing we seek. For us to desire something or do things, we seek to be more like the ideal that's behind our thinking, that behind our reasoning of what's worth doing. Anything that becomes better or improves, there we go, in any way does so by becoming like the thing it becomes like. All making, copying, or producing of anything is making it like the model of the thing. So not just in our return, but in creation of anything itself. You make your painting like the model. And to get an example of that, you have Leonardo DiCaprio on the Titanic doing his charcoal painting of that lady, who becomes the old lady. And she says, "Paint me like your French women." What they're referring to is this principle of likeness. Make your creation like me, the model. Pseudo French woman. Okay, all things, like another thing, are so because of the condition that made that likeness possible. And as long as that condition persists or is maintained, then we can say that there is this single tie that joins and holds all things together. Likeness ties everything together. Surely when things become like, they share a common likeness, and they also have a commonness that joins them together. But each thing becoming like a model becomes more like its ideal or archetype. For the being of each thing is defined by its likeness to the intelligible model. So, for a thing to be a thing, there must be some intelligible model upon which it's based. So that you can be a human thing, and I can be a human thing, and that guy over there can be a human thing, and that girl over there can be a human thing.
Would you like your pudding?
Who likes pudding?
You're gay if you don't give me everything that's in your wallet right now.
And likes stealing people's money. Oh my goodness.
Well, you eat bananas, so you're evil.
And she eats bananas, so she's evil. There must be some model that we are all participating in. We should also imply that there is some ideal we can all seek together. Ooh, a model of justice, perchance, for all humans. A necessary model to be understood and apprehended by every single politician. Every single spiritual leader. Everyone influencing any other system that people are under, like economies, justice systems. Therefore, should we all be reading this book in primary school? Really makes you think, doesn't it?
Well, we still eat bananas.
No, not think about bananas.
I would scoop the moon in a cup.
In a cup.
For you.
For you. Not because of bananas.
Come on, dude. That's too vulgar.
I don't mean bananas as a metaphor.
Shut up for a second, please.
So shut up for a second, please.
I'm Benny Dorito. I'm cool. I'm a cool guy.
No. Arun is always trying to prove that he's Benny Dorito. Just be yourself. Don't have to be Benny Dorito.
You literally are dumber than children.
All right. So there's some archetype or ideal. That we call the intelligible model. Intelligible is a fancy word that means can be grasped by the intellect. I mean, maybe you can think of a better definition for intelligible. But that's basically where it's at. And it's through being like its idea that each is what it truly is. Then, likeness is the factor that perfects the being of each, since perfection comes to each when it becomes like its intelligible form. So we are seeking the intelligible form of humanity, or soul, or mind, for our perfection of our own humanity, soul, mind, or self. As a consequence of likeness being the condition for things to become like, we can say that this perfecting of such things is conditioned by likeness. Therefore, for creation and for development, there is an underlying principle, likeness. Simple idea, basic, not a physical thing. We didn't have to do a study on it. We didn't have to debate about it. Unlike the fool who thinks it's foolish to reflect on the simple, we are seeing what's most simple and causal and necessary for our own development. The likeness of things in similar cases is expressed in and through analogy. Analogy allows us to talk about creation and evolution, unfolding, return, emanation and return. because it expresses the likeness of things in similar classes, and it is this factor that is the natural property of analogy. Then, anything made or created presupposes the condition of likeness. Indeed, since God's creation is often spoken as being like himself, we can say that the condition of likeness made it possible for the universe and man to be akin to himself. But this is saying, is it not, that the supreme originating cause of the universe is the principle of analogy? So you may have heard from various different religions or even philosophers that, from religion, God made man in his image. Therefore, analogy had to exist prior to this creating God. So when someone says, oh, what's God? God is this dude that created. Oh, so there's it's not the highest then. There's something greater than God. What do you mean? Well, if your idea is of God as some sort of intelligent figure that created the universe, then there were principles or preconditions prior to that existence for him to be able to do that thing and become this God that you love so much. And analogy is one of them. Super interesting. Gone beyond belief. So, the condition of likeness made it possible for the universe and man to be like or akin to himself. But this is saying, is it not, that the supreme originating cause of the universe is the principle of analogy? So there we go. We got there. So it's not whatever philodoxia debate bros.
Debate dweeb.
Debate dweebs.
Debate pervert.
Debate perverts say justifies their rhetoric, reasoning from first principles. It's reasoning about the supreme originating cause of the universe. Supreme originating cause of the universe is the principle of analogy. So we're becoming like the divine by our reading of this book, reflecting on these questions, and perfecting our own understanding and skill of analogy. Just as if you invite your friend for coffee and you say, buy me a coffee and I will share some analogies with you, or ask you questions to discover some analogies. As a dialectician, you are perfecting your own self by making yourself more like the divine intelligence by participating in analogy. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win.
Do a poggers.
We shall all do a poggers.
I love this guy.
Thank you. And again, does it not follow that this principle must be logically prior to creation? And once again, does not the principle of analogy also allow and make possible the condition for linking or bonding together whatever is? So there is a way of bringing together the many into a oneness, and it seems to be through this principle of likeness. It's not so if one of the descriptors for our peak experience of knowing eternity is oneness, we don't get that oneness by squishing everything into a box, or making everyone Christians, or making everyone Jews, or making everyone Muslims, or any of that crap, or MAGA. You don't physically link everything together into a oneness. There is some activity of mind that is able to perceive the oneness of all things that is prior to its physical manifestation, and it seems like likeness is that game we play as we seek that peak experience, to know our ideal or model. So, Plato grasped this in a superb manner where he said with his funny voice in the Timaeus, He said,
And the most beautiful of bonds is that which most perfectly unites into one both itself and the things which it binds together. And to effect this in the most beautiful manner is the natural property of analogy.
which is interesting because if we do want a oneness, we need something to bring everything into a oneness, but that thing has to be included. Otherwise, it's outside of the oneness. So the thing that makes everything into a oneness has to be also made into a oneness. Analogy. Somehow, analogy binds together its extreme terms and also analogy itself. So the most extreme terms, one and many. How does analogy do that? Or physical creation and metaphysical existence? How does analogy bring those two things together into a oneness, as well as bringing together analogy? Binds, so perfects into one itself and the things that it binds together. However, must there not be a model and something produced like it for likeness to exist? Then model, copy, and likeness coming together is required for any creation. Right. So as Leo paints the picture of that lady on the Titanic, they may not be aware of it, but they're also participating in likeness. Now, if the model is nothing other than God, then in the act of creation, God looks to himself in the producing of creation. But that which he looks to as a model must itself have some kind of existence or mode of being. Now, if that is the model, which we would call the mind of God, the divine intelligence, then whatever was the cause or condition for that must be called the creator of the model, must it not? Meaning, we are understanding what has to exist for God or for the universe. We have our creation of the universe, there must be some creator intelligence outside of the physical universe to create it. We call that God. But it has to have some model, even if it's reflecting on itself. There has to be some selfhood of that God that is knowable. What's the knowable experience? Mind or intelligence. So we have the divine intelligence that God reflects on to create the universe. Hooray! We know what God is. Hang on a second. Why are we calling it God 3? Oh, because there has to be some higher God that created the divine intelligence that the lesser God reflects on, Leonardo DiCaprio on the boat, to create our universe. So already we have two gods. And if you want to call this divine intelligence, that's the model, a god, we've got 4. But we'll leave that one out for now. We'll just call it divine intelligence to keep things clear. So then in review, can we say that there is God, the God who produced the intelligence, the God who reflects on himself in creating and the creation itself? Okay, so. Whoops.
Ah, fuck.
Ah, fuck. Did it again. So prior to even God 2 that creates the divine intelligence, there is God 1. So in that review, he said there's God, there's the creator of the divine intelligence, God, there's the user of the divine intelligence, God, and there's the physical universe creation. Hopefully he'll say more about God 1. Further, is not the reflecting on the model God, further, is not the reflecting on the model called God contemplating divine intelligence? Then, these different ideas of God or moments in the creative processes are collectively the idea of divine creation. So, you can put a circle around all this and say, this is the idea of divine creation. There we go. Emma?
That's so funny.
It's a little bit funny.
Oh, fuck.
I can't make it more funny. With a sound drop!
I love this guy.
No, it's not a funny one. Give me a funny one, Emma.
That was not on my bingo card.
Okay, that's a little bit funny. So these moments of the creative process, including these different ideas of God, are collectively the idea of divine creation, which must have an existence prior to creation. Further, since these ideas are presupposed for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the universe, they are the necessary conditions for the physical universe. So not only are these the conditions needed for creation, the fact that we have a universe implies this existence that is being maintained as well. For as the maker produces and creates what is evolving, the conditions for that evolution must have a prior existence. For since the suspension of the conditions for evolving would bring an end to the universe, there has to be some conditions for the all of this to be happening, and if those conditions are gone, then the universe is kaput. The fact is necessary for the universe existing and evolving and must remain in place. Thus, these ideas that are necessary for creation can be said to gain their continued existence from the continued reflection of God on the idea of creation. So we know at least there is a kind of divine intelligence called God, God 3, that is continuously reflecting upon its divine intelligence necessary for the creation's maintenance and existence of the universe. And dissolution is interesting. So maybe there can be an end to this universe. I wonder if that happens, there'll be another one. Maybe a fulfillment of its evolution. Interesting, we can wonder. God's gone. Therefore, we can call this idea in the mind of God the first creation, and the universe the second, and both are sustained by the continued creative contemplation of God. So, the first creation is this God 2 creating the divine intelligence. The second creation, God 3 reflecting on that divine intelligence to create our physical universe. And he just said, by the way, it's maintained by this continued ousia. Ousia, the capacity of our mind to turn about and know itself. So we say, what makes us different from cabbages, caterpillars, and cows is our capacity for self-reflection. Ousia is the word for it. And to do that reflection rationally. Logos. We see the people who are the most cruel and sadistic, conservatives, capitalists, and clergy, do not engage in self-reflection. famously, the tech bros of the AI, cryptosphere, whatever, tech giants talk about not reflecting. The Republicans never reflect. Religious people never reflect on their beliefs or their functioning. Their faith puts an end to that. Literally, in the book, that's what Harry said. I don't have to worry about these things that can confuse me or cause me doubt. Faith ends that. So, appealing to the physical universe, and there are people, we have Keegan Teagan. Is he on our board still?
Come on, baby.
Come on, baby.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby.
Why is there one whole block for that? Keegan Teagan.
We definitely are not born.
No, that's Professor Dave. That's Keegan Teagan.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles. My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
All right, I don't even press those buttons. You here?
I'm eating the testicles of this bull, and I'm eating it raw. Raw bull balls. This is raw buffalo balls.
All right, okay, so it's not Keegan Teagan, it's Keegan something. He has a YouTube and Instagram presence where he looks at the science of why Republicans are cruel and stupid and hurting everyone, and progressives are doing that less. I saw one this morning of why is it that conservatives don't make good art? Why do their movies all suck? And he looked at the science behind it. So there are studies of how like left-wing or progressive people are more creative, more empathetic, can challenge whatever, and all of the right-wingers are not funny. All their movies are about family values and bullshit, and it's all stupid and garbage. Sure. Sure, but that's not going to prove anything. That's correlation. What we are seeing is the proof, the cause. Sure, it will have to still have a relevance, or it will still have to have these testable impacts in the physical world, but we're not looking at the physical world to derive a hypothesis. We are hypothesizing from thought itself, what's inherent in thought itself. In other words, as we reflect, which believers don't do, and again, all of these studies that show this, we are becoming more like the ideal model of intelligence, which is not just self-reflection, but permanent self-reflection. Necessarily to maintain the idea of creation and our physical universe. There is a divine God that's reflecting on itself as its divine intelligence, which is the model for everything it creates. Just like, if that's our ideal, we want to be most like it, to unlock higher and higher levels of reflection on intelligence itself, thus not appealing to physical things. Yes, it will work in the physical world. Yes, the physical studies will be consistent, but we're not looking to the effects, as Socrates says in the Republic. I don't care if this Republic exists. We are engaged in reflecting on the ideal, because that ideal has to be our model for everything we do if we want our activities to be beautiful and just, if we want to be good people. So this kind of reflection, philodianoia, is making us more like the ideal model. Therefore, we can say this stream is an activity, or this podcast is an activity necessary for all human beings, or something like it, in our evolution, perfection, therefore our meaning of life, in the perfection of us as evolving souls towards our ideal. And what's interesting about this is our ideal is a continued state of ousia. The state of mind looking to mind itself is a continued state of existence. So that question we got from Parmenides' teacher Xenophanes, what is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking? Not particular physical things you can see through the mind, but what is the whole, or mind itself, is a question that you can carry at all times to put yourself in that state of mind, more like your ideal. It's a perfecting koan. Koan is a fancy word for a spiritual kind of question that can have psychic improvements or can facilitate. It's a question you can carry at all times that has a spiritual significance to it. Koan. Fancy word. Which is interesting because as we go through that that perfecting process in our lives, we have ups and downs in the various happy states of mind or sad states of mind. But ultimately, we are practicing keeping our cool. That's that temperance. Holding that question. There's our virtue of wisdom. Following the instructions of these sorts of people. Because we want to have a single, wise, continued state of mind, just as God 3 is in a continued state of mind of reflecting on that model called divine intelligence. Neat. I say it's neat. What do you say, Emma?
Butt to butt.
No, not butt to butt.
Well, we still eat bananas.
We do still eat bananas.
On the real, I say stuff like that because I'm cool.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
Bull testicles. Indeed. So, the idea in the mind of God is the first creation, and then the universe built on that model, the second. And both are sustained by the continued creative contemplation of God. Continue to see it. Kind of greatness, isn't it? The first creation's origin is God, and since it is an idea, God must be the source of the existence of mind. The first creation's origin is God. God must be the source of the existence of mind, if not God itself. Again, since it is an idea, it must contain within itself all that is necessary for the creation, and that being the case, it must either have or will have parts, i.e. a manyness. All right, so just as we said that this, what most people consider God, the creator, pre-exists something before it, a divine intelligence that it can reflect on and use in the activity of creation. That divine intelligence must have some creator cause, so a higher God that creates the divine intelligence. So already we've gone far beyond mainstream. We're wicked and mainstream. No, we are cool. Because we're not mainstream. We've gone past the mainstream ideas of God. I don't know what I was going with that. That was terrible.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck indeed. For this, just as for God 3 to create, there are a pre-existing model. For God 2 to create that model, there has to be, prior to that creation, all of the principles needed for creation itself, including analogy. So we call that a prior existence of God 1. And what he's saying now is all of those things, likeness, model copy, analogy, would have to be aspects of it, a kind of manyness. Therefore, another word for manyness is together in one God, or level of dimension of reality, you could say. I've been seeing a lot of Instagram videos of this lovely lady talking about flatland. She has some little two-dimensional friends that she's using to tell stories about the flatland universe. The flatland universe is telling a story about what happens if we have two-dimensional critters like this. This drawing is 2 dimensions. It's got this way and this way, but no outwardly towards you. I can't draw it, in fact. I have to draw the arrow like this, pointing out towards you. Not there. And how they would think about us as 3D critters. I don't know what the name is. In order to speculate about the 4th dimension. How would the 4th dimension see us as 3-dimensional critters? Therefore, we can ask the question, if there is a physical 3-dimensional world, universe, going through an evolving process that's had to have been created and also sustained, that sustaining has to be existing in a non-physical dimension of reality simultaneously or concurrently to the universe going through 3-dimensional space and time. So what we are discovering is something about the 4th dimension that that lady is talking about with the Flatlanders. There's also some cool YouTube videos on Carl Sagan's Flatland as well. Same sort of speculation. Therefore, is that God's 4th dimension? Is its divine intelligence also 4th dimension, but if it pre-exists, is it 5th? Is the God that created the divine intelligence, is that 7th? Or wait, 4, 5, is that the 6th dimension? But hang on a second, there has to be all of the conditions necessary for this God to create the divine intelligence. Is that the 7th dimension of reality? Why? Because as we said, this is concurrent. We have time in the physical world, so we use time as an analogy to, as 2-dimensional flatlanders have to use things from its universe to use analogy to speculate how it applies like, same and different to higher ones. So too, are we using the language of time prior analogously to understand this? Because this isn't prior in time. I mean, kind of this is before time itself to create time, but it's also concurrent. When we say prior, we mean of a higher, I don't want to use the word ontology and sound like a dick because, okay, 2 key words in philosophy: ontology. Ology means study. Ontos means being or what exists. Ontology is the study of what exists. The other, its best friend, epistemology. Epistos meaning knowing. Ology meaning the study of how we can know what exists. So what is and how can we know it? Ontology and epistemology. There we go. 2 words to use loudly at the cafe to sound really smart. And everyone will hear you and they'll say,
Just popped a perky, now I'm Kirky.
that you're now Kirky.
Would you like your pudding?
And they'll give you some free pudding, which is nice to have with your coffee at the cafe.
What if aliens are angels or something? What the hell does that mean?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of a metaphysical speculation. What if aliens are angels? Thank you. Keep going with your reasoning, Mr. Brown. So we use words analogously like prior, but we mean of higher metaphysical existence. More real, more primary. Primary, yeah, primary. Can go both ways. And more primary, more of our ideal that we seek to become like in our perfection in our perfection. Therefore, everything going through an improving or perfecting process is becoming more like its ideal, which has to exist more primary. Therefore, we can say everything that is evolving or growing or seeks to perfect itself, anything with a moving life force, as we have, is kind of returning to the first cause. The more primary prior model upon which creation was based. So we could say the first cause would be, in principle, the final cause. And of course, there is a name for that, the first and final cause. Or, as analogy unfolds in creation, also it returns in perfection. Once again, none of this is by looking at the physical world, but by reasoning upon reasoning itself to see what has to exist for the physical world. And as we said, if it's all has to be simultaneous, if at any time any one of these is, if Galactus, the World Eater, the big Marvel monster, takes a bite out of this idea of creation, that would be a pretty neat, actually, this is what comics should be. Mythology is supposed to be a story-based allegory for reality to help us have fun, reflecting on and wondering about and sharing these necessary ideas or logos to allow for our own self-reflection. Usia and logos, the two things that we are supposed to be perfecting. So you could do a comic book where Galactus takes a bite out of any one of those things. And then the drama would be all of the problems that happen in the physical world. And then your superheroes, Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk and Wolverine, have to go mystic or something and find a way of traveling to these higher dimensions. Or multiverse. You could use whatever is the analogy within that universe to talk about that. Maybe multiverse dimensions if you're Spider-Man. But what we're saying is, it's concurrent. If you take a bite out of any one of those at any time, everything goes to crap. Everything goes wacko. Meaning, necessarily, they're happening at the same time, but some more prior, more primary, more causal. Therefore, where are they? Where are they? Think about your own consciousness. It's not in the physical world, but it's still happening at the same time. Doesn't have shape. Does it have shape? What shape does your consciousness have? What color does it have? If it has to have color to be seen, right? Can you see anything that doesn't have color? Can you recognize anything with sight that doesn't have a shape? Camouflage is using color to obscure shape so you don't see it. What shape does your consciousness have? Oh! Are these all ways of reflecting on Xenophanes' koan? What is the whole of seeing, hearing, thinking? Not what is seen, heard, or thought, but the whole? What color does it have? What shape does it have? All of the things to define the physical universe. It's happening concurrently. Where is it then? These are flatland-like questions, aren't they? So we can wonder, are these simultaneous dimensions of reality that are concurrent? That we are ourselves, in every level, perfected the higher up that chain we turn our attention to. As This creator God reflects on a prior dimension of divine intelligence to function in a brilliant way, brilliant light, to create the physical universe. Dimensions, baby! We are Spider-Man, but for reals. We are the real Peter Parker in the multiverse of multi-dimensional Spider-Mans or whatever. I haven't seen the new Spider-Man movie. In fact, let me pause. It may turn out that the main hero that all the gods celebrate in the real reading of the Odyssey, not Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, is Penelope. This is key. Our current state of society is one built on prejudice, ruled by belief, one of the two cognitive functions. The good one should be understanding, which is this. And that involves trying to trick people to vote against their interests to allow some believer in charge. And that comes by offering them their own tyranny or vice signaling. Hey, let us be tyrants on Epstein Island bombing Iranian school children. But you can be a tyrant too. To immigrants. To people with different colored skin. To women, shapes and colors. So, given that, the extreme subjugation and oppression of women for millennia under belief-based systems of tyranny, that's what tyranny is, it might be worth a female philosopher leading the reading of the Balboa translation of Homer's Odyssey on this channel. Because that might be a book about a woman reaching the highest stages of development. Maybe. That has been an image in my mind for a long time. I don't know if that's real or not. I don't know if it'll ever happen. I don't know if one day the stream becomes popular enough that we have enough people who want to read it. Let alone lead a reading. But that's been my idea. Anyway, pause for a second. That noise means we're back into the reading. So, the idea in the mind of God is the first creation, and then that's used as the model for the second creation, the universe. And both are sustained by that continued ousia, God contemplating his own intelligence. Telling us, why do we care about this? Not only is it interesting, we are in this video game called Being a Human. It's worth understanding the lore, figuring out what it is, where it came from, or what's maintaining it. But also, it's our ideal that we are seeking ourselves. Likeness, that we want to become like. So, again, showing the significance of Xenophanes' question. Xenophanes taught Parmenides, taught Socrates, taught Plato. And Socrates also taught Pierre Grimes, in a way, and he's teaching us. So we're in that lineage of Xenophanes to Parmenides to Socrates to Pierre to you. So the first creation's origin is God, and since it is an idea, God must be the source of the existence of mind. If not God itself. So I think he's saying this must be the source of the creation of divine intelligence, and maybe also God 3 that's using it to create. Again, since it is an idea, it must contain within itself all that is necessary for creation. And that being the case, it must either have or will have parts, i.e., manyness. The idea, we can say, is one, but the unity of its parts presents a oneness. Another word for unity is oneness, and oneness is called the property or quality of the one. So, again, reasoning based on reason itself. For this, even this first creation of the divine intelligence, which is the model of our physical universe, there has to be certain preconditions. And while these preconditions are itself one God, we can see rationally by reflecting on it, it isn't just one, it's oneness. Why? Because it has qualities. All of those things that we said. Raising my seat a little bit. So oneness, or a unity of all of those qualities. Oneness, the word ness is the adjective of the thing. Oneness is the quality of one. So there has to be an even more prior cause, one, necessary for the oneness of all the elements that can be used for the creation of divine intelligence, which is itself the model contemplated for the creation of the physical universe. You won't read that in a Bible. You won't read that in a holy scripture some con artist discovered under a rock to create his wacko religion.
Just like use your brain for a second.
We are using our brains here.
That was bitch.
That was bitch. Hey, don't say that.
Fuck.
Okay. So the idea of that God one is one, but its unity of parts presents a oneness. Another word for unity is oneness, and oneness is called the property or quality of the one. Surely that oneness or unity of the idea must contain within itself, or at least implicitly, all that later develops from it. In other words, if you don't want to wait for the universe to go through all of its stages to reach its endpoint, you could see that all of the stages it will go through, including its endpoint, has to pre-exist within, or at least implicitly within, the oneness of God one. In that dimension. Again, concurrently to our physical dimension here. Why waste time? Why not jump to the end? Game developers hate this one hack. Right? You've seen these speedrunners where instead of playing the game, they do some weird thing and they jump right to the end where they get the Triforce and defeat. Who's that guy? What's the guy? Oh, fuck me. So they jump ahead to defeat Ganon. Maybe the archetype for speedrunning games is our perceiving the oneness of God one. Something to wonder about. But if it is a one that has parts, then the many parts would make it a one of many parts, which would be a unity of many, not a pure one. The one itself then is the source of oneness. And if the idea of oneness stands to the idea of creation, so the one must stand to God. Meaning an analogy. So the idea of creation has as its source the idea of oneness, the oneness that contains all of those aspects for creation, like analogy and likeness, for it to be the idea of creation. The idea of creation being everything below here. So we can draw a circle under here. What color? We'll use this color here. And we'll draw a circle. There we go. This circle here. Where's my pen? God 2, that creates the divine intelligence that God 3 uses as the model for creation. And that creation is the, whoops. The physical, fuck,
Don't be disgusting.
sorry. The physical, Emma,
Because woman.
hey. The physical universe or multiverse. There we go. Universe. So there's our, we used the Dark Souls analogy last time. This is our lands of the fallen, or the lands betwixt that we play our game in. Our physical universe is where it comes from. Isn't this neat? Like, isn't it neat that we can actually ask and answer the rational questions? How stupid would it be to wake up in this world and not ask, what is it? Where are we? What is this thing? Where'd it come from? What are we supposed to do here? Now, grifters will come along and say, oh, I can tell you. Dear, listen to me as I grift you with answers to these questions that are all bullshit. So growing up in this sick society where belief or prejudice, it's all relative, is allowed to rule and oppress, we think, well, I guess there is no answers. I guess if the only people answering these questions are these scam artists, I guess there is no answer. If all religions lie about the nature of God, I guess there is no God. If all these fascists lie about justice, I guess there is no justice. That's why we don't just leave belief, we have to understand and unpack its influence over us. If you say there's no God because all of the religious idiots are lying about God, you'll never discover this, the creation of and the sustaining of our universe. If you think there's no justice because all of the fascists ruling capitalism, religion, and conservative politics are all evil, not literal evil, but doing the evil things, you won't discover true justice. You won't go through your own development. Isn't it neat that we can ask these questions and we can answer them without any appeal to our physical senses? Studies, whether or not there has been a decent person in the world, we can still be decent people. Whether or not there has been people who've understood this, we can still understand this. We're not basing our development on the ignorance or the development of others. We can pursue our own freedom and excellence independently from whatever other people are doing, which is important, seeing as there's so many fascists who are not doing this game. Isn't it neat? I think it's neat. So this circle here, we call the idea of creation. For there to be creation, there has to be a model and a copy. For there to be a model, there has to be a creation of that model. For there to be a creation, there also has to be this God that uses that model to create the copy and sustain that copy if it sustains through time. So therefore, we call this the idea of creation. Make it a bit thicker, is what she said.
Look at this broad.
Look at this broad saying, make it thicker. Idea That was a terrible thing to say.
You probably want to put your grandma in the basement.
If she
So
says
I
something
guess you
like
fucking
that, I
hate
would.
grandma.
Yes.
Calm your fucking tits.
Okay, maybe not. Idea of creation. All right, so for this idea of creation to exist, there has to be this creating the preconditions for these causes of our physical universe. And if this preconditions are together as a oneness, there has to be a cause for that. That's the pure one. So we can say up here at the top, as the idea of oneness, God one, is the source of the idea of creation, this whole circle. So too, analogously, the one itself, or the pure one, has to pre-exist, or of a higher, more real, more excellent dimension that we seek to perfect our own selves. The one itself has to exist as the source of oneness. No appeal to studies. The only qualification is spending our time reading this book and reflecting on the simple. And it's true. And it will be true. And it always was true. And it will always be true. Therefore, a kind of learning we can take with us anywhere, even beyond this reincarnation. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
They're secretly turned on by it.
And you can be turned on by it.
Gooners.
It's okay to be gooners sometimes.
I often frequent websites.
Oh, do you? That's good. To be aware, I don't know why you're talking about it when we talk about being gooners. Bit suspicious.
All these people are so stupid.
Oh, I think you've been called out.
Just shut up.
Okay, I'll shut up about my nonsense. For a pure one must be such as to have no parts, but the cause and the source of oneness. Further, would it not follow that the one cannot be identical with anything, nor be the same with anything? Because that would be two things. What qualities would you point at for it to say, oh, that, or similar to any class of things? That is similar. Why? Well, it has similar qualities. Qualities? Wouldn't that be a manyness? That'd be the thing and its qualities. That's already two. So you can't point to its qualities to have similar qualities in a different class. But also, if you're comparing it to a different class, there's already two things in that level of dimension of reality. But as for it to be identical with anything or the same with anything, you've got two things that you're making a comparison between. That ain't a dimension of pure one. But in some way, there is something implicit or inherent within it that allows for the creation of oneness. There's something inherent to this. By the way, the word for what is inherent to it, its qualities or aspects, or what is inherent to it that may not even be able to be seen in direct experience, that's called the logos. That's what we've been following all this time. We've been using the logos to unpack and discover the logos. There may be something, there has to be something inherent to it without it having parts or qualities to give rise to the oneness that contains the conditions for all qualities. So somehow every possible quality that can possibly exist right down here in the physical universe is inherent in this pure one. Is explicit in God one. Is used to create the model of everything by God too, the creator of the first creation. the model then used by God 3 to create a physical universe copy of that model in the second creation. Therefore, if we are perfected by, so if we're creating a list of terms of development of intelligent life from the physical universe to its model, to its, but by the way, when we are becoming like our model, we're not just becoming like the model itself, but we are ourselves doing things. We are creating. So our state of being and functioning is perfected by the functioning of the God that creates the universe. Even higher, perfected by that state of being or oneness of divine intelligence. Is perfected by being more like God 2 that creates that. Is perfected by being more like God 1 that is a state of being of oneness that creates everything for creation. That is perfected by being more like the pure one. That isn't a oneness, but somehow contains implicitly the logos of all logos. Which is what Parmenides refers to as the self. And Socrates says, can you give me a dialectic of yourself? What do you think the self is? That's the first hypothesis, the one self. But interesting, when we talk about, in English we say the one itself, but the Greeks would just say self one. Which implies not only we're talking about the one itself, but the fact that we can say this word, we have a language that says when we talk about the thing itself, we use the word self. Somehow implicit to our thought is when we talk about a thing specifically, we assign the word self to it. Why is that? Implicit in our language is the metaphysics or spirituality that this isn't just one itself, it is self. In other words, we as selves seeking our perfection, it is a dimension or level of self. And Parmenides says it's the highest. Therefore, the pure one self is what we seek in perfecting ourselves, just as the continuous contemplation of divine intelligence, sustaining and maintaining and sustaining and causal of all of our activities is our ideal state of mind. So this idea of creation, contemplating on divine intelligence and its creator, could be our ideal state of mind. The pure one self could be our ideal state of self. Did you find that in an ancient scroll buried under a dusty rock? That also tells you should have all the women's and all of the power. Oh, we didn't? So we don't have to believe it? It's an object of understanding, reasoning based on reasoning itself. What's implicit in our own thought. Therefore, if we are seeking what's implicit within the pure one of the self, are we becoming more like it by reasoning based on what's implicit in intelligence itself, thought itself? Is that why this is the best channel on Twitch? Or top 2? Yes.
I think you're a babe.
Now you shouldn't be saying that on 2 buttons, because I've got a button specifically to make you tell me that.
Come on, baby.
No, it's come on, baby.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby.
It's just getting hornier as it keeps going on.
If I keep pressing it, Emma, don't make it weird.
Gooner bait.
That's just Guna bait, Emma.
That was not on my bingo card.
So, then when the one couldn't be identical with anything else or comparable to any other things, but the source of all, can't be similar to any class of things, but the source of all things and all classes of things. So the first cause. Is this not curious? Well, I think it is. This exchanging or even mixing together the idea of God and its creation with the one and many. Is it interesting? Pardon me. Well, you have become a theologian when you use the idea of God and creation, and you become a metaphysician when you use the idea of one and many. We are becoming metaphysicians. And when you mix them both, you become both. Oh, so we're both. We are theologians and metaphysicians, and that's all you had to do. You didn't have to buy a degree or dance to the ignorant beliefs of some professor saying, well, I'm not going to make you. Nope. You didn't have to be part of a group, buy a franchise. Just had to have fun on the coolest channel on all the internets.
All the smoothies have bananas.
We also learn about smoothies and bananas.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Which is very happy, makes Emma happy. The advantage of the metaphysical lies in developing a system of thought, metaphysics, that is implicit in our thought. That's what we're looking to. No dusty scrolls under mysterious rocks that are discovered by guys that decide that they should be king, like Paul of modern Christianity, or Jesus anyway, keep going. So the advantage of metaphysics lies in the development of a system of thought, metaphysics, that is implicit in our thought and which can be unfolded in and through understanding and presented in language. This is called the functioning of the logos. Interesting. So we have been using logos to talk to what is inherent within something, the logos of the self. We want to discover that. The logos of mind. That's the highest aspect of mind that we seek to perfect our own mind. But the functioning of the logos is unfolding it through understanding and presenting it in language. So we're talking about two things, aren't we? Our ideal state of being and our ideal functioning. Our ideal state of mind, which is to be reflecting on the divine intelligence as our model of creation, but that reflection has to also be able to recognize the logos inherent within it. So the ousia and logos of mind turning upon mind, allowing for our ideal functioning in creating based on that model, creating beautiful things, creating just things, beautiful and just relationships, love and logos. But our ideal state of self would be similar. To see that all of this is somehow inherent in that which doesn't have qualities, but is the cause of all qualities. Your attention itself, awareness or sight itself, seeing or attention itself, has somehow everything that unfolds here inherent to it. So metaphysics would be following the logos of mind or thought itself, which can be then applied to discover how can we do the same with attention itself, which doesn't have qualities, doesn't have ups and downs. Where you lay your attention is what gives you the different states of mind or ups and downs. And the unfolding of what is inherent in the knowing, ousia, and logos, unfolding it through understanding and language is the functioning of the logos. We're doing that through this, creating our maps, and through the dialectic and maps of analogy, of course, and dialectic. So we want to see how can we find the inherent logos and ousia of attention knowing itself, and how can we unfold that in language, thought, and every kind of functioning that we engage in. And how can we use the ideal functioning of mind itself as an analogy? We could even go one step further and say, well, hey, that's the self that is. But what about in the physical world? We have a distorted analogy. The self that isn't, our pathologos false belief of self, unfolds through thought, not understanding, but belief. Unfolds in language, not truth, but rhetoric. And debate, not dialectic, but debate. Causes not our perfection, but causes all harm, sadism, death and destruction, injustice. So we can even use that as an analogy. Hey, if there is a state of being, a contemplating of your false state of self and what's inherent within that, your teachings from childhood, you suck in this way, or you can't do that in this way, and you have to be a follower in this way, and all this shit. If that's the cause of all of our problems that every single human being plays out in every reincarnation until they figure this out, and our excellence contains an ousia, continued self-reflection, and inherent logos that unfolds in our good actions. So this is human badness and human goodness. How can we use both that we experience in the human journey of evolution through multiple reincarnations, or just one if you're good at it? How can we use both to analogously discover what's inherent in the state of being of self, awareness aware of itself, and what's implicit, the logos implicit in a pure one, because attention doesn't have qualities. And you recognize that as the ideal, that ousia as the ideal state of self, and the unfolding of that in everything you do, our ideal functioning. Or if this is a guru, mind this excellence we normally call gurus, guru of gurus, guru squared. Pretty neat. Now we can see why we have to take this intermediate step. First of all, whether we like it or not, we have this video game where we still have this problem to solve. In other words, whether we like it or not, we have been carrying with us a false belief about self and reality that's been causing our problems through multiple reincarnations. We have to do this. Therefore, some people say that the most important activity is philosophical midwifery, the use of the dialectic to surface your false beliefs about self and remove them. You got to do that. But this intermediate step, it's just interesting about how we said, hey, there is an intermediate step of this divine intelligence that maintains our physical universe and maintains God too. Similarly, we can see how there has to be this intermediate step of becoming a guru, or that's just a word, a dialectician, perfecting our state of mind. We can see that has to be a necessary step, because right now we are looking at what's inherent in thought itself, inherent in mind itself, to discover the cause of the physical universe. But we're also using this to discover it itself, cause and effect, must have its cause. And if the idea of creation has its cause of a oneness, that too must have a cause, a pure one. And that cause must be similar to divine intelligence containing everything within it, its logos for the physical world. So too, a pure one must contain everything in it inherent for the oneness necessary for creation. In other words, that analogy that we saw here. Deleting this. Everything in that idea of creation has to have its source as this oneness, which itself, in a similar way, has the one itself. In other words, the existence of a pure one self, which is also the most transcendent dimensionally, but also the most immediate and intimate, as it's the self, its attention itself, the most available, it would be difficult to use attention itself as the standard or model for this kind of reflection, having no parts that we can experience. And because it's a step removed from the physical universe, we can use the physical universe to realize, every study that I've been interested in, or every field I've been interested in, has certain qualities, whole and part, same and different, one and many. Has some ability to compare between sets, likeness. Has some sort of standard that we're interested in, beauty, justice, goodness, excellence. Has its greater and lesser of some kind. True and false. False imitators, scammers. Where are all these things? We never see them, but we need them to do anything. So the physical universe can help us to reflect on the metaphysical mind itself. But it's a step removed from pure attention. So metaphysics seems to be a necessary intermediate or mean step to our ultimate goal to know the self. So all of these things in the physical world, beauty, justice, whole, part, same, different, greater, lesser, must exist somewhere, metaphysically, prior to physical. But all of those things, in a similar way, in order to make sense of those things, just as in the physical world, in order to make sense of the physical world, we need things like whole and part and justice and beauty. So too, in order to make sense of these things, we need to be using the idea of one idea of beauty, one idea of justice. Good. This is the good that we seek, or this is the good idea of justice compared to the bad one in belief. We need the idea of true and false. This is the true nature of beauty, the model or archetype, the truth of it. Compared to the false, some preacher or imam or rabbi or pastor pretending to be an expert and harming people through belief. And we also use the word self. This is the one idea of the good idea of the true idea of beauty itself. Therefore, everything we've used, reflecting on what's inherent and necessary to exist for us to use it as an adjective to make sense of the physical world, leading us to metaphysics, whole, part, same, different, beauty, justice, we apply to those things. To talk about beauty itself, we need the idea of self. To talk about the one idea of beauty, you need the idea of one. To talk about the true idea of beauty, you need the idea of true. To talk about it being good and worth pursuing as our model for our perfection and excellence, our good state of being and our good functioning, you need some vague notion or intuition of this thing called good for you to want to be good and seek the good model of justice and beauty and not be a bitch, slave, or tyrant within the bullshit of belief. You need to have an intuition to seek the good, to want to know the truth about things and not be a scammer or a slave or a sheep to belief. You need some intuition about why it's worth knowing the truth and not marketing. Otherwise, you'll be a business bro or a marketing exec some fuckhead who wants to lie to people to fuck them over for profit, making you a bad person because you're engaged in the fake. Even under that system, you don't want to be duped by capitalist bullshit or religious bullshit or conservative bullshit. Even the MAGA, even the what do you call them? Not materialists, consumerists, even the religious don't want to think they're wrong. And for any of this to be perceived in any way, either through your physical senses or through mind, you need the intuition of one person that you can see with your physical senses. Camouflages to distort that so you don't see one idea that you see with understanding. So in other words, what we intuitively seek and use, and what's implicit necessary for us to engage in the activity of metaphysics, tells us about the reality of metaphysics. So in other words, in our activity of making sense of the physical universe, we can see that there are some preconditions and causes necessary to pre-exist in reality. In other words, by reflecting on our epistemology, our thinking, epistosology, study of thought, we can discover what's true about reality or ontology. Those are the two fancy, I'll write them on the board. We mentioned them earlier today. The two big words that are like brother and sister. Epistemology. And normally I don't like using big words, but these are really handy. Ontology, because it's usually used to gatekeep or sound smart or whatever. Ontology. Epistemology is how we think, and the different levels to that. And ontology is what is. And you can see how they're connected. Every level of what is has its associated cognitive function that perceives it. So we can say each cognitive function, or vice versa, each cognitive function has its associated level of reality that it applies to, or dimension, if we're using the word dimension today, or object it applies to. What we are discovering is, hey, belief is the shitty cognitive function. Understanding is the cognitive function based on what's inherent to thought. So by using that epistemology and reflecting on our epistemology, we're discovering something about what is. There is a different dimension necessarily existing eternally, where there is a divine God reflecting on its own divine intelligence and is doing the activity of creating and sustaining and maintaining the physical universe and all of its forces and principles that it's using in its evolutionary process. Epistemology awakens our ontology. And equally so, by reflecting on what we're using to make sense of our excellence of mind, one true good self, we are discovering that there must ontologically be that existing even prior, or prior is the time-based word, even higher dimension, more real dimension of reality. That's for you. You don't have to be good enough for it. It's literally yourself. It's your awareness. You don't have to meditate for a certain amount of time, or go up in the ranks of Scientology, or shave your head and wear a red robe like the Christians, or meditate sweep up at the ashram for 40 years at the Zendo. You don't have to be qualified for it. It's you. Just gotta look. We're learning how to look at looking. So by reflecting on our epistemology, what we are using ourselves to make sense of our higher state of mind, we can see that there are certain intuitive qualities that we are making use of, whether we like it or not, and have to make use of in a creation or perfecting process that has to exist higher, or higher again is a space word, but again, we use it analogically. More greater or ultimate. If we say this is the greater, the physical world is lesser, ultimate, giving us those three terms that refer to levels of truth. The false, the truth, and true itself. So in doing that, we can see there's something about attention itself or awareness itself that's the most immediate, but also is somehow the standard or ideal or model or archetype for the words that have to exist in the highest level. It is one. Not a oneness with qualities that you can experience, because that would be an experiencer experiencing it. That's two things. But it may also apply to those other key words. Self, it may be the self. That pure one of attention, not two. I guess if you have shadow clones like Naruto, you can have your attention here and your attention over there. But even that's not the same, because Naruto has his own attention, and his shadow clones has its own attention. He only gets the attention of them when the shadow clones dissolve and they come back. But it's all make-believe anyway. But our question is this excellence of metaphysics and the associated state of mind of your ideal state of mind you're perfecting towards a necessary intermediate step to use everything that you used to reach it, to see necessarily in the lower dimension there are things that you are using and taking for granted that have to exist higher, to use all of that to apply it to that step of your excellence of mind, to realize there are also things you are taking for granted to make sense of metaphysics, like one itself, to talk about it as a oneness, truth itself, to talk about it as the truth of reality, or true itself, to talk about it as the truth, or trueness as an adjective to compare it to what's false, and goodness to describe it as the goodness of the ideal model and archetype for our perfection, to describe it to bad things that we shouldn't be pursuing. Or so those are the adjectives that we're describing for it that have to pre-exist as nouns, but also, even one step further, our language itself contains the word itself that I had to use right then to talk about language itself. In other words, all the way along we're using the word self, aren't we, to talk about beauty itself as the goodness, oneness, and truth of the model of beauty, and for all other things. So in other words, our goal to know the self requires us to become that first level of guru. And that's the difference between understanding and belief. You don't have to believe anyone. In fact, you're not supposed to believe it. That's the point. And it's directly confirmable in your own experience. Okay? What do you say?
Crazy hot babe.
And if you do it, the oracle will think you're a crazy hot babe.
Slay the puss.
And Emma will say that you will do that. I'm not going to say it. I'm too cultured.
I often frequent websites.
And that's not relevant, but good anyway.
The dumbest amongst us are like public intellectuals. It's great.
Maybe he should frequent this website.
Why do you need 50 bananas? So many bananas.
And we also learn about how many bananas are so many bananas. Also worth understanding. Right, Emma?
You're gay if you don't give me everything that's in your wallet right now.
Stop telling me I'm gay if I don't give you everything in my Emma. That's terrible.
Okay, well, I think you should suck my dick and balls.
Oh my goodness.
Metaphorical dick and balls.
Oh, well, in that case. Oh, we have
Oh
fun.
my god. Oh, we need to protect people, and everything's a threat to the safety of people. Also, blow everyone up all the time.
See, that's belief-based functioning. Good point, Mr. Brown. So by talking about it in terms of the imagery or mythology of God, giving it a personification, that's theology. By talking about it completely rationally, dry of that, that's metaphysician. Mix both and you're both. That's what it means to be a true philosopher. Rationality itself and functioning to create stories to help convey and remember it. The advantage of metaphysics, let's reread this after our reflection. The advantage of the metaphysical lies in developing a system of thought, a metaphysics, that is implicit in our thought or mind, and which can be unfolded through our functioning, through understanding and language that we present it through. This is called the functioning of the logos. But can we say that a pure idea of one can be what a pure idea of God is? So, we had our necessary levels of God. Again, the personification of metaphysics or the theologizing of metaphysics. Meaning that the pure idea of one, necessary for the oneness of God 1, that God 2 uses to create divine intelligence, that God 3 uses to create the universe, that pure one, we would have to call a pure, color is this? Does that mean that the pure one, necessary for oneness, there, the way from now, whoops. No. Hold for a second, making some space. Would this be, therefore, the pure, what do you say, the or a? A pure one be what a pure idea of God is, okay? Bit thicker. A pure idea. Now we're saying idea with a little a. We're not saying it exists as an aspect of mind, but a way of understanding. Pure idea of God is the question. If so, seeing as we've been defining a set of terms, God 1, God 2, God 3, within the set, could we call this God Prime? God Prime. Or the archetype or ideal. God Prime is funny because we have Superman Prime. It is a word used in theology. Mythology, in comics and stuff. Would this be God Prime? That makes me happy for some reason.
Why do you need 50 bananas?
Coming
50
at you
bananas.
rock hard.
Exactly.
Come on, baby.
Come on, baby. Pure God
I'm
Prime.
Benny Dorito. I'm cool.
No.
I'm a cool guy.
No, you don't have to be Benny Dorito to be cool, but just wonder about God Prime as the first term in our set of gods. Quite cool? Pure one. Asks this master through questions to us. Can we say that a pure idea of one can be what a pure idea of God is? Fucking good. I wasn't going to stream today. I still don't feel so great, but maybe I have sympathy pains. I don't know. But I did it anyway, and oh my god, what a fucking good stream. It's hard to put into words how great this is, because it sounds like stuff that you wouldn't hear anywhere. Oh yeah, here are the different ideas of God. Takes you above and beyond any religious nonsense. Necessary for our own perfection of mind and self. You don't have to believe anyone. It's just there to be seen if you have fun looking. And also it's difficult to say how great this is because, as I make fun of myself for often, I don't get a lot of viewers. I think the last episode I saw has gotten 2 viewers on YouTube and 3 on the Twitch VOD. Sometimes I get more. And sometimes 16. I think the best average is usually about, I don't know, maybe 18 on Twitch and maybe 5 or 6 on YouTube. So it does feel weird talking about how awesome this is, considering how not unpopular, but just not popular it is. Isn't it fucking awesome? But again, as the book says, you have to be of a high level of intelligence and a high level of character. Intelligence to appreciate this and follow along, but also a character to be interested in it and pursue it, even though your beliefs, or what feels like every fiber of your being, but not really, your beliefs that you have been spending your life listening to and identifying with, is telling you don't do it, do anything else. So again, a good heart and a good head is required, and so we can appreciate one of the key reasons why it isn't popular, but still, isn't it awesome? Look at this. God Prime. Didn't have to pay any money or believe anyone or subscribe to any cult. And as we practice reasoning to God Prime, we can take this anywhere with us. Whatever dimension, flatland 2D world, or any planet or galaxy on this 3D world, or any 4, 5, all the way to, what is it, 7th? Potential dimension of God Prime. It may be necessary to reach the 7th. This reasoning might be necessary to reach 7th dimensional God Prime. I think it's cool.
Every smoothie has bananas.
No, I don't think that's reasoning well. I don't think every smoothie has bananas.
You literally are dumber than children.
Okay, maybe you're right. I am. Maybe it does.
All the smoothies have bananas.
Ah, I see. All the smoothies have bananas.
Come on, baby.
Okay.
I want to peg a woman.
Emma, don't be seduced by her reasoning. Don't say that to her.
All the smoothies have bananas.
Don't be convinced, Emma.
Butt to butt.
No, not even that, Emma.
You sick fuck.
She's not buying your seduction, Emma. Even when you said that.
Spit on me.
No, that's not going to work either.
No.
She said no. Sorry, Emma. I feel bad for you, Emma.
I'm not an idiot. That's what keeps you in the Matrix.
The Matrix. Good point. So, a bit of sincerity and a bit of nonsense to keep it nice and balanced. Can you say that a pure idea of one can be what a pure idea of God is? Might you even be cool and call it God Prime? But the idea of one, a pure one, seems empty of all that would be needed. When people normally talk about, whoops, wrong page. Here we go. But the idea of one, a pure one, seems empty of all that would be needed to call a god. Isn't one what people use to describe God? Is he's creating, he's judging, he's loving. He wants you to kill those Palestinians, and these are the chosen people, and those are the chosen people, and these are the chosen people, and those. And God says women suck, and immigrants suck, and everything sucks except for you, and you should have everything. Isn't that what God says? Is what people say about God? Yet, okay, I went from the higher term, God is creation, and then God is loving, and next God is judging, and then next God hates women, and next God says it's okay to kill Palestinians so long as you orchestrate a bullshit event called so you can vilify those that you are trying to slaughter because Hamas or because terrorist. Inside jobs and false flags, they are called blah 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 blah. Same old game, always the same. Very simple, very obvious. But without any of those qualities that are normally prescribed to God, isn't it interesting? Yet many of the ancient Greek philosophers argue that a pure one would necessarily have to be good. Now we've introduced the next term. Not only rationally must it be a pure one for oneness, which rationally has to be necessary for the idea of creation in that big purple circle. But we're bringing in the idea of desire in our perfection. And, well, whatever else is involved in the idea of good. Beauty, justice, excellence, but also what we would desire or seek. What kind of reasoning would be needed to support the claim that this pure one or God prime is also a pure good, or the standard of good? This way of reflecting and exploring ideas does not depend on science. Physical senses smashing things together and torturing people and digging up dangerous material and all this sort of shit that makes our nuclear weapons and hand grenades. Nor does it depend on the data of the senses, but only what can be understood in and through reason alone. Highlight that. That's a good one. That's a banger. Again, not whatever rhetoric from what you consider to be philosophy from academic philosophers who lie and bullshit. Save belief, by the way, that's called hermeneutics. Most people who are not engaged in this, whether they like it or not, are going through a life where they defend their own false beliefs and rulership, prejudice, it's all relative, of belief. That way of saving belief through stories that we tell ourselves, the inherited beliefs from our past. Religions are good actually, and your own specific ones, I'm bad actually. That's hermeneutics, the game of trying to save belief. And if you see philosophers that have any sort of audience on the YouTubes and the social medias, it may be because they are appealing to the beliefs of others who are themselves trying to save their own personal beliefs. Hermeneuticians appealing to hermeneuticians. So politicians do the same thing. They try and never say anything so they don't disagree with beliefs. And you can project your own beliefs into them. So, hermeneutics, the study of or the human life pursuing the saving of ignorance or belief. The opposite, metaphysics, reasoning through reason alone. The reflecting and exploring of ideas not depend on science or the data of the senses, but only that what can be understood in and through the use of reason alone. Dianoia. Pretty neat. Pretty fun. Pretty cheap. Pretty awesome. This kind of study is called metaphysics. Consider the idea of God's goodness is a matter of belief. And if it's belief, you can lie and shit. God's goodness, he loves you because he kills people. He genocides, whatever. But to try to understand the real goodness behind the real God, 3, 2, 1 or prime. 1, 2, 3. Try understand that rather than simply believe is the task of metaphysics. So as we've been seeing in the book, belief is the thing that makes people bad. Understanding is what makes us good. And the activity of true understanding allows us to perhaps figure out what is goodness itself and badness itself, and to discover that even that implies the existence of something more higher and pure, good, as the standard for goodness and badness. So, metaphysics is the moral and ethical, moral because it's the good activity of understanding. It allows us to reach the idea or model of goodness itself, and to wonder about the pure good of pure attention self. Ethical because it makes you a good person in society. So we could say it's the moral and ethical responsibility of all human beings who have the capacity for language and self-reflection. But I don't know if it's worth saying that, because we're not trying to guilt people into playing this game, but it's just true. Maybe it's worth saying that because there are some people who have influence over curriculums at schools and things, or are interested in the justice system. So it's worth telling the truth. So they might make a curriculum or a system of creating and sustaining justice based on what's the moral and ethical responsibility of all people. Imagine a world when everyone was free from having to trade in their life for survival under a capitalist system of ignorance. All our human needs were met by simply, rationally, efficiently, sustainably, and renewably matching all of the planet's resources using all of the technology, not patented secret technology only available to certain people. Or what's catch and kill? A billionaire bought the technology for free energy and then buried it so he can abuse people by selling his. Imagine all human needs met efficiently, renewably, sustainably, harmoniously with all life by matching all the resources through all the technology to meet all human needs, freeing us to spend our lives learning about beliefs and understanding, purifying our own false beliefs that we are here to do, and perfecting our understanding that leads to metaphysics and beyond to the contemplation of the pure good one self. Wouldn't that be fun? No war? No prostitution? No billionaires exploiting the impoverished in that kind of a way? Fun? Worth doing? What might we discover? The only thing stepping in the way are the lives of the believers. Oh no, true innovation comes from giving billionaires everything. Bullfucking shit. The opposite of innovation. Catch and kill. Why have only a small handful of people able to create things, and they only create things that cause problems that they can profit on, rather than everyone creating things? Not to exploit, but to benefit. The opposite of innovation. What's the other lie they say? Job creator. No, we just said we don't want jobs. Jobs have no value, otherwise the billionaires would have bought them all. Another word for slavery. Exploitation. Alright, so job creators are out. Innovators are out. What else? They're inherently geniuses. Bullfucking shit. Don't see any of them here. They're in fact specifically engaged in preventing logos anusia and harming. But also, we don't have to look to a specific billionaire. In principle, rule by belief opposes innovation and benefit and intelligence. However, with that simple basic model, universal needs, universal principles applied universally to meet all universal needs to universally benefit, creating the conditions for our universal purpose. So 5 uses of the word universal in that sentence. Universal principles, universally applied to meet all universal needs, to create the conditions for our universal goals to be pursued that will universally benefit. That should be the catchphrase of the humanity, the progressives. As we pursue that, we will face all that opposes that, belief and belief-based groups surfacing, And we have to not only use understanding to perfect that ideal, but to purify all that in opposition, allowing us as a race to learn about not just belief, but all kinds of belief that function negatively. Meaning we could become masters of belief and understanding, giving us a certain role within a three-dimensional multiverse or galaxy or universe, or beyond galaxy, of course, within a three-dimensional universe as masters of all kinds of belief, having gone through the hard slog of dealing with these fuckhead beliefs that prevent goodness and perfecting our idea of excellence, but also may give us a role within a multi-dimensional cosmos or multiverse. Maybe? Would it be fun to find out? Would that be a fun adventure? More fun than murdering school children for the sadistic pleasure and profit of the Epstein billionaire class? A little bit more fun than defending belief? Maybe? Maybe? Again, you have to have a good head to be able to be interested in following this reasoning, but also a good heart, because there is an impulse to say, yes, but not my beliefs. My beliefs actually were good ones. My parents were actually already multi-dimensional, wise, enlightened beings. They knew everything about everything. It's fucking stupid, but it is an impulse that everyone will have. It's stupid simply because that doesn't make fucking sense. They're not at that stage of evolution yet, but also, they're not philosophers, but also, how can every parent on the street be fucking geniuses? It's the same thing. How can every billionaire be a genius? They claim to be. As soon as you get two, it falls down. My parents know everything, so my beliefs are right. Have you met your neighbors? Ask them. What do they say? My parents. Oh, they say the same thing. You have to both be wrong. Anyway. It can get frustrating sometimes how obvious this is, and yet how pervasive it is over the human soul, causing such widespread ignorance, sadism, destruction, and unnecessary injustice. But we keep the stream going anyway. Alright, so the idea of God's goodness is a matter of belief, but to try to understand that rather than simply believe it is the task of metaphysics. And we might say it's a moral and ethical responsibility of everyone, but that sounds kind of like we're guilting people into doing it. So maybe we won't say it. We'll just think it and say it quietly to ourselves. To achieve that requires explaining in what way the one and the good are identical. So we're back to where we left off last episode. However, we have gone through some sort of reflection and contemplation on all these ideas again. We did come to a kind of way of explaining that, didn't we? By saying that this, the human excellence of mind, some sort of, again, there's a state of being in an activity, by some activity of reflecting on our physical universe and our way of making sense, our epistemology, implies the existence of a divine intelligence eternally reflecting on itself, ousia, the perfection of our own self-reflection, but also necessarily maintaining that self-reflection in order to create and sustain our physical universe. And that being a mean term, because while this is easier to see, it has qualities or aspects, the word eidos, mistranslated by academic philosophers as forms, bullshit, it's aspects, eidos. It's much easier to recognize those adjectives that we use for our physical world exist as nouns or substantives within pure intelligence, allowing for our perfection of mind, such that we can use that as an analogy to see that there are also certain adjectives required, implied, implicit in our thinking or implicit, not even in our thinking, implicit in our desire to think as we seek the good, our yearning for the truth, our bringing everything together in our thinking or epistemology into a one, and our language to do so, beauty itself, what's inherent in all language, the word self. So there are these kind of key terms necessary to talk about beauty itself as the model or oneness for our perfection, our goodness, in the experience of bliss, goodness, recognized as the truth of beauty itself. All those words must therefore exist in a prior way, or a higher dimensional way, or a more causal way, not only within thought, but within our not functioning of intelligence, but functioning of attention, awareness. Awareness as a one. Its life, its motivation, its will to seek its good, and its integrity to know the truth, and to see it as self. Isn't that what we're here for? We all want to see ourselves as good. Some people don't realize that defending that beliefs cause harm, and so they defend their beliefs because they say, I am a Jew or I am a Christian. So they try and pretend their religion is good or their beliefs are good, hermeneutics. So they fight against their own development because they want to see themselves as good, and they identify with belief. The issue is not to convince them that they're bad, but to recognize you are not your beliefs. You are not the thing you have. You are not your car. Even if right-wing podcasters that will tell you to eat bull testicles
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
say you are your Bugattis. You are not your beliefs. Even those con artists, conservatives, religious, and capitalists say you are your beliefs. It's not you that is bad, it is beliefs that are bad. In our good activity of understanding, we can come to recognize ourselves as potentially the pure idea of one, and also the pure idea of good and true. The model or principle or axiom of what is true. Is that what we want? Is that what all people fight for? And to be treated anything otherwise causes people to have psychological problems. There are some people on some ships run by Donald Trump that are trying to kill themselves because they are being treated as something other than good. As they are being told things that are something other than true, lies, and to be and trying and using them to create things other than one, division, genocide, imperialism, capitalism, fascism. Rather kill themselves. Why? When we treat self other than those key ideas. Is that what we have? Know ourselves as the one, the good, and the true. Not only that, but the principle of all those things, containing within itself all that is inherent for oneness, of the model of goodness, in its unfolding of truth into its copy, such that we seek in our movement from copy to model the truth, our perfection to the ideal goodness, and are bringing it all together in our direct experience and cognition as a oneness. Are we all seeking the pure one, the pure good, the pure true, the pure self? Is that self prime? I mean God prime? to make that case, says the book, is the activity of, well, the higher activity of metaphysics. To use reason alone. To say that this pure one and the pure good are not like each other, can't have likeness with the pure one. Not the same. Two things is the same, identical. Which is interesting because we are seeing that for our development towards the ideal mind, we discovered that perfection happens through the principle of analogy. That is, look at this scribble. This scribble here. Oh, I've even got a big circle and I can't remove the little dot. These little dots are tricky. Let's see if I zoom in. Look at this! How much do I have to zoom in to be able to delete it? It won't delete a dot. Maybe the program sees it not as a two-dimensional dot, but a pure dot with only one dimension. So I can't delete it. I have to select it and delete it. Dimensions again. So, as we recognize there are different states of mind that human beings can have, from the most... Oh, and by the way, we see at the bottom, our pathologos, unlike the stages of developing a house towards the model of the blueprints, bricks and wood don't have a counter force seeking its badness, as humans have, those defending their beliefs and images of themselves. But we have this, the self that isn't the pathologos, causing our problems that we have to purify. Nevertheless, as we go through the terms within the set, that's called perfection. Hierarchically arranged terms of, for us, states of mind and functioning of mind, both state and functioning. We are seeking the ideal that defines that set, and we recognize, therefore, the deviations from that ideal are levels of difference, but also there has to be something. We are all the same in that we are same states of mind. We're all states of mind and functioning of mind. So there's sameness and difference from that ideal. We try and remove our difference, become more the same as that ideal, to the point where we become so the same as it, same as it, that we become identical with it. When we reach the level of sameness that becomes... Is there a term between sameness and identity? Let's find it in the book. There may be a missing term that I'm identical. Here we go. Would you not agree that... Where's my... What happened to my Bluetooth magic thing, magic trackpad? Maybe it's my magic trackpad is dead. Yeah, I think it's run out of batteries. Okay, have to charge it up. Okay. Oh, I must have run out the stream because I... Anyway, what's this way? If two things are the same in every respect, then there would be no way distinguishable from one from the other. Well, if that's true, wouldn't that mean that there is really only one thing, not two? And so it would be proper to say that things were truly identical, having no difference between them. There would not be one. There would be one, not two. Then can we say that since there are things, each of them must be the same in some respect and different from others in other respects? That sameness is shared, establishes them in a class among a hierarchically arranged set of classes. Everything is related to everything else in the universe because there are things in the universe. There's a sameness and difference. Between any two things in the universe, there are at least one sameness and difference. uniqueness, similar. No, we want to find if there's a term between identical and same. Identical, there would not be one. Members, same and similar, oneness. No, I think there isn't. Similar, identical. No, I thought there was a term between same and identity. But there isn't. So, our perfection becoming more the same as the model and removing the differences, including removing for human beings the force that drives us to maintaining our ignorance and difference, belief, to the point where we are so the same as the model that there are not two things. We are identical. That's our identity by being identical. So through likeness, we perfect our sameness to eventually become identical. Meaning, as we perfect our self-reflection that we are doing here, ousia, to see what's inherent to the mind logos, we are becoming more the same as God 3, which is also reflecting self-ousia on his self-logos in order to create and maintain the physical universe. So we're becoming same and same like it until eventually we become identical with it. So our mind becomes the ideal mind. There's our perfection. Notice, it's not a physical thing. It's beyond what's prior to the physical universe. It's a state of mind. A state of mind and functioning of mind that we are seeking to become identical with them, ideal of mind. Similarly, might there be a kind of self-reflection that God Prime is doing on the Pure One, and recognizing its inherent logos that contains everything necessary for this whole creation of the multiverse? Would that involve recognizing, first of all, self-reflection, ousia, but recognizing the most primary terms used to describe what is inherent in pure attention or pure self is Pure One, and also pure good. The author is saying, can you make that case? In making that case, would you therefore be functioning like the ideal, not of mind, but of self, your ideal self? Would you be perfecting your state and functioning of self? Could you recognize that only by referring to metaphysics? The nature and activity and process of perfecting your state and functioning of your ideal mind. Is that intermediate stage necessary? Because it's more difficult to reflect on that which has no qualities, pure awareness, than it is to reflect on literally the highest experience open to humanity. Bliss, beauty itself, justice itself, reality itself. The highest experience of oneness, goodness, and truth. And whether you've experienced it or not, we reasoned it out, no appeal to belief or physical senses or sciences to do so. Can we use that same activity to get to where we are in metaphysics and theology? True theologians, metaphysicians, to say, hang on a second, truth, goodness, oneness. For us to intuit that, you can't see it in that experience, but you can recognize it in that experience. Where do we get the thing itself from? In the same way, we went from beautiful things to beauty itself. Can we go from oneness, goodness, and truth in the thing to its cause, the pure one, the pure good, and the pure true. If we make that case, are we becoming more like the ideal? The self? Therefore, Xenophony's question has two parts. What is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking, not the things, sights, thoughts, sounds? What's the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking? Turns your attention to this likeness of ousia and logos of mind in the perfection of mind, but also keeping with you that in that question, and what is watching? Can we add to that? And can we make, using reason itself, can we explain by what is watching even the whole of mind? How is it both a pure one and a pure good? I might be sneaky and sneak in the third idea, the pure model or standard of true, but that's not in the book, so you can take or leave that one. Therefore, if our ultimate activity is to know the self, is that to see the God Prime as the pure one, as the self of your pure attention? If our other activity, to seek that knowing of self, is also to recognize it is good, are we fulfilling our ultimate purpose to know the self and recognize it as good as well? In reflecting in this way and making this argument, or not argument, explanation. And if you got some extra time on your hands, maybe you could even make the explanation of why it might be purely true, and the model of all that is true. Did I mention this is a good book? Did I mention it's a fucking banger? Did I mention?
Off the perky, call me Kirky.
We're all off the perky. Call us all Kirky now.
Boom. I love that.
Boom. We love that. Mr. Brown?
UFOs might be Jesus.
Oh my goodness. You're always telling me that UFOs might be Jesus. You need to go on Joe Rogan's podcast.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
He won't eat a monkey. He wants you to eat.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
And if you don't eat the bull testicles, he will say,
Come on, baby.
come on, baby. Fun? So, we did finish with this question last episode, but are we seeing more about the significance of that question and more about how we might do this and why it's worth doing, given our reflection on it? I still don't know what this guy believed in. I would suggest going back to the start of the episode and you will see whether or not your question is good or bad, or why it's not good or bad. You can absolutely answer your question, but no one's going to hold your hand for you. Because if someone simply told you the answer, they would be keeping you in a state like an infant, like a baby. If someone gives you what you need to develop an understanding of that answer yourself, they would be helping you. I'm always going to be, I'm here to help you, but I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to treat you like a baby. If you do go back to the start of the episode, you can find the VOD on Twitch, or minus our little pauses and interludes, you can find the video on YouTube. I'm posting it straight after I stream. You can answer that question. In doing so, you need to have the intelligence to hold your question and seek an answer. You also have to have the character to do it, because everything in your being will tell you don't do it. I'm used to being told the answers like a baby. I don't want to learn anything. Or I'm scared of thinking in a different way. What if I let go of my beliefs? How will I perceive in the world? That's called cognophobia, a fear of development into higher cognitive functions. You need to have a character courageous enough to do it anyway. And you have to have an intelligence enough to do your best to follow along. This isn't an indoctrination. You can ask questions. There's a Discord, there are comment sections, and you can show up in the chat to ask questions, but only if you are doing your best. If you want to be treated like an infant, there are many other content creators that can appeal to your beliefs and treat you like a baby. Okay, just answer my question, says Chatter, and tell me what you believe in. I just did. I said, if you want answers, you are seeking beliefs. Beliefs are what keep you fucking stupid like a baby. A good person will say, fuck beliefs, learn to think for yourself, develop understanding. Here's what you can do to develop understanding. Go through this podcast. You can find it here. You can find it here. There's a PDF link to the text below. You can read along. You can find the whole series you can go through. It's your question. Do it yourself. To hold a question and carry it is the hero's journey. To follow a question is to be on a quest. When Obi-Wan Kenobi met Luke Skywalker, he didn't say, you defeat Lord Vader yourself. I'm too much of a baby. He said, how do I become a Jedi? Learning to understand is becoming a Jedi. That's your purpose. That's the purpose of all people. Seeking beliefs keeps you stupid. Learn to think. Now, I'm encouraging you. I'm not saying do it yourself. I'm here. There's a community here. You can ask questions. If you want answers spoon-fed to you like a baby, find Asmon Goldstream. He will agree with all of your stupid, ignorant beliefs and tell you you're the best boy. And then you can subscribe to his channel, and he will tell you to do Nazi shit, and so the cycle of ignorance continues. If you want to learn how to think and become a good person, carry your question with integrity, have the intelligence to hold it, have the character to seek truth, have the desire to be benefited by it, goodness, and learn how to understand. Chatter says, okay, then what is the real truth? Enjoy watching this episode. If you watch it, come back. If you have any further questions, we'll be here. Enjoy your quest. And that applies to everyone, of course. Anyone who's been in this series for, I think we're closing on episode 57 for this long, congratulations and thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel, but also thank you for being a good person. And thank you for seeking your own goodness, truth, and oneness of your own thinking, epistemology, and experience of reality, ontology. Some would say you are being a moral person in seeking your perfection and excellence. And also, not just your own state of being, but your functioning towards yourself and your relationships. You're also a member of society. So, you are doing your ethical responsibility by learning to understand and purify belief. So I would thank you for being a moral and ethical person. But that sounds a bit too guilt trippy. So maybe I won't say that too loudly. I'll say thank you for doing your best, really. Doing your best with... And it's not an easy... I know it's not easy. I've been in this game for a very long time. I know it's not easy. And I know it can be lonely because, again, there aren't a lot of people who seek understanding and self-perfection. Legitimately, with a good head and a good heart. But those who are in the game make the best friends and companions. So thank you once again. Hey, can you have fun finding a way of explaining how the one and the good are identical? As you do that, what does it do to you? Does it change you in any way? Both your feeling state and your functioning? Does your life change? Do your dreams change in any way? And can you be carrying Xenophanes' question with you the whole time? Whatever you do. What is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking right now? And what's watching? A bit of a long sentence, but it's a sentence you can repeat. Can you find a way of holding on to this Xenophanes question, which is literally the core, the root of all philosophy, the earliest philosophy that we have written down, who taught Parmenides, who taught the dialectic to Socrates, who mastered the dialectic and midwifery, who then taught the author of this book, who is now teaching you, can you carry that question? Or would you like to carry that question and not let it go? And finally, can you see anything of this in your dreams tonight? We've been talking about bringing theology and metaphysics together by recognizing what metaphysics is, reasoning through reasoning itself, but also what theology is. Bastardized by belief, let's not listen to that, but true theology, taking your metaphysical explanations and presenting it through analogy. Instead of saying levels of self or mind, use the word God or Superman. Superman Prime, that works. And to talk about the relationships, which is concurrently all at once, we do use the language of time analogously to talk about prior, and the language of space to talk about profundity in terms of higher and lower. So higher and lower in space, prior in time, but it's all concurrent. So we might refer to flatlanders and multi-dimensional levels of existence, ontology. But to take all that and present it in a story through time as a metaphor for all those things, that's the use of analogy called allegory. That's theology. An allegorical expression through analogy, metaphor, similes as well. An allegorical expression through analogy to personify the principles of metaphysics that are gained through reason, on reason, and what's inherent in reason, to ultimately discover what's inherent in attention. To know and function through the self, most ideally. Worth doing, worth sharing with your friends, worth developing the character to play the game. Well, only one way to find out. Have fun with your dreams tonight, and I will see you. Oh, if you want to donate to the channel, you can. There's a link below. If you want a PDF to the text that we're reading, there is a link below. If you want to subscribe to the Discord, you'll get a notification when we go live. And I'll see you, of course, in the next one. Bye.